I certainly would like to welcome all of you to this event. We're here to honor our friend, if you will, and to thank him for his generosity in providing the material for the archives here at the university. I was personally impressed with the amount of material available, the works, the books, the writings that are available to us, and I think we all owe Dr. Aruri a debt of gratitude. As I say, I've known him for over 40 years and had the pleasure of having his children, not just his, but Joyce's, in my classes over the years at Dartmouth High School. They were very motivated, and they were very polite, and you could tell that they received the kind of upbringing that showed that the quality of education was so important for their future, as it obviously was. Let me just say that our program will consist of the fact that we have 6 speakers who will come up and describe a little bit about their relationship with Dr. Aruri and what they've learned about him, and maybe can tell us a little bit about that. After the, and again, 4 minutes, after the speakers, those of us who are staying for the dinner will move to the Woodland Commons, and there we will have a meal. 2 of the 13 grandchildren, and I'm not sure how you selected them, Dr. Aruri, but 2 of them will be speaking, and they've been told, Cito says 2 minutes, so they understand that as well. We'll then have our dinner. But after the dinner, for a few moments, we'll have some of the graduates, the class of 1969. 40 years ago, we left UMass Dartmouth, which wasn't UMass Dartmouth then. And over the years, the political science group, 10 or so of us, have met for lunch twice a year. And in some instances, Dr. Aruri has joined us. So some of them would like to say a few words at the conclusion of the dinner, and that will end our program. To begin, however, we have a couple of students who represent Students for Justice in the Middle East, and they have an award that they would like to present to Dr. Aruri. Alan Barber and Adi Kadura are here for that group, and they will present this award.
Hello, everyone. In the spring of 2009, a group of us founded a student organization, Students for Justice in the Middle East, in order to educate students about the Middle East. However, Dr. Aruri has been doing so since 1965. He has authored numerous books on Palestine and the Middle East politics and history, also written too many articles in both scholars and popular presses in the same topics. He has been a strong advocate for human rights, and for that we would like to present this award on behalf of SGME, and we would like to thank you very much. This is the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. I'd now like to introduce Jean Doyle, Professor Emerita at UMass Dartmouth, and she would be saying a few words about her relationship and her working with our good friend, Dr. Aruri. Jean?
I'm very pleased I get to go first because then I won't be repeating things that everybody else has said. It's nice to see. I don't think I've been on this campus in 5 years since I retired, and it's really nice to see people I haven't seen for a long time. Naseer Aruri's scholarship is. I have 3 things I want to say. First, I want to talk about Naseer's scholarship. He has a national and international scholarly reputation. The year the Chancellor professorships were created, he probably he received one. And that's because he was so well known. He probably had the strongest reputation of any professor at that point in the social sciences at this university. Naseer Aruri was not an ivory tower academic. He believed in, as Mao would have said, the China comes out again. He believed in uniting theory and practice. He was today, and he was before the term was even invented, I think, truly a public intellectual. Somebody who lived what he believed in. Sometimes that was not comfortable for himself and his family, but he always did what he thought was right. Through his television appearances, through his work with Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. So he believed in justice and human rights and practiced what he preached. Finally, and I think most importantly, from my perspective, Naseer is a gentleman. He is truly a gentleman. He's not a screamer. He's been faced with screamers, I know, but he's never responded in kind. There's a Yiddish word for Naseer Aruri. It's mensch. A really fabulous human being. Many good scholars are rotten human beings. We've all, at least those of us in academia, have known a few. But Naseer was the epitome of civility. Even when things got really bad, Naseer was always civil. Naseer was always a uniter, not a divider, in the true sense of the word. And I think that's, for me, the most important thing about him. What did I learn from Naseer? I learned to clip, clip, clip. Are the clipping files part of the archive?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, because when they become part of the archive, they will be a tribute not only to Naseer, but to the hundreds of work-study students who clipped and filed them. This was before the days of Google. So, congratulations, Naseer.
Thank you, Jean. Someone let me know if John Carroll does arrive, at what point, so that I'll know exactly when to put him in. I know he's stuck in traffic and he's on his way. Next we have Maria Furman, a retired partner at Standish Ayer and Wood, Boston, UMass graduate, class of 1979. Maria?
Glasses here. Hello. Well, it's a great pleasure for me to be here today to pay tribute to a very special friend, a great scholar, father, and family man. I was a student of Naseer's in the 70s when he was chair of the political science department. After I graduated, we became great family friends, a relationship that has spanned over 30 years. Although I am Portuguese and Naseer is Palestinian, we found that we had much in common. We are more family than friends, and long ago, he adopted me, well, we mutually adopted each other. He and Joyce adopted me, and I adopted them. Indeed, I was soon lucky enough to meet Joyce, his young bride at the time. They had the 4 children, and they all became my closest friends, and also Joyce is the godmother to my son. When I first met Joyce, to talk about Joyce for a minute, I had invited the Aruris over to dinner as a young newlywed, and Joyce was just getting over the flu. She did not want to go out. She did not feel good. Somehow Naseer insisted that she come because he didn't want to disappoint me, since I was putting on the Ritz for them. And it was my very first meal for guests, and I'm not very good with beef. So I had laid out a very beautiful white hand-embroidered Portuguese tablecloth that had never been used. And the apartment I had in Fall River was very tiny. She was freezing, it was cold and drafty, and the meat was undercooked. I just can't get it right. Naseer proceeded to spill the sauce of the roast beef all over my new beautiful white tablecloth. But I got over it, and that was the start of our long family friendship. Never used the tablecloth again. Now, you all know Naseer's many accomplishments and amazing body of work. So I wanted to give you more of a glimpse of Naseer as a friend and what a fun-loving guy he really is. He really has two sides. He may come across as very serious, distinguished, impressive, proper, love the accent. But that's just a little slice of Naseer. So let me tell you a few very brief stories that reflect his other side. Do any of you remember what you were doing when Elvis died? Well, we do, because we were camping with a boat on a lake in Franconia Notch in New Hampshire on a very rainy weekend. So imagine this. They pack up the 4 kids, the dog, they had a little dog at the time, the boat, a lot of food and games, and it proceeds to rain all weekend long. Joyce, who had never camped before, didn't know that you had to wet the tent to somehow waterproof it so it doesn't leak. So of course, you guessed it, the tent shrunk, it was leaking inside, the clothes and the sleeping bags were getting wet. You couldn't do much with the boat because it was raining. The dogs and the kids were unhappy. And then to top it all off, Elvis dies. And I certainly went into a funk after that. Naseer had to go to a chiropractor when he got home from sleeping on the ground. And Joyce said she would never go camping again. And she didn't. However, you won't be surprised to hear that we had a fabulous time. We made otter soup, and we sat by the fire in the rain. We played cards by flashlight in the tent. I can still visualize it. You know, the kids were holding the flashlight while we were playing poker, and we laughed so hard that we've never forgotten that trip. So it's always been like this between us. No matter what the outside circumstances, we always had a wonderful time. They taught me to cook Arabic food, and I began to believe I must have Arabic ancestors because I love it so much. I probably do, since I'm of Portuguese descent. The Arabs, ruled Portugal for many years, so therefore I know I have that. Naseer is a very creative chef, and he was cool before Emerald made chefs rich and famous. He was very cool. He had a huge garden in his house in the backyard and delighted in going out to pick fresh vegetables and herbs and making up recipes when we came over for dinner. If things didn't work out in the academic field, we would say he could always rely on that and maybe open up a restaurant, to which Joyce always said, oh, forget it. So Naseer was a trendsetter back then in terms of slow cooking and healthy food and gardening before any of this came into play, and we were always chasing him for the recipes. We spent many wonderful evenings with our other friends, Dr. Manny and Shelley Carrero. Manny was also a student. He'll be speaking in a minute. And what we would do, we would go north to ski. That was the excuse in any case. A typical weekend would go like this. We would rent a condo in different ski resorts almost every year. We would pack up all the gear, drive north, sometimes in snowstorms. One time they were actually closing the road as we went. We just made it because everybody was flying off the road and we were closing it, but we got up there. We would bring lots of food and a deck of cards, and we would generally stay in our pajamas, reading books, playing cards, cooking and eating, and sometimes drinking. And one time, we never even left the condo the whole weekend. Nobody went to ski. So we go up there, nobody went to ski. We would play cards for hours, mostly poker, and we all kept saying, Naseer, do you want a card? Or do you want a hit? And it was never about the winning, but it was about having fun together. We could have saved a lot of money staying home and doing this, but it just became a tradition to go up there to just stay home and do this event, One time, I enticed Naseer and Joyce to take up sailing on Boston Harbor. They took a course for a week, getting up early and driving up every day. It was a very windy week, unfortunately, and they also had an Israeli instructor who then proceeded to argue with them all the time about politics, never taught them anything about sailing. So by the end of the course, they were ready to kill me because they said, this was very frustrating. I also got them involved in motorboating, as Naseer bought this little boat that I had, probably like a 12-footer or 15-foot boat. A little one, and then he kept on going as he loved to fish and then kept buying bigger boats later on. as he became more experienced. One day on the 4th of July, we were boating near Cuttyhunk on the little boat, and the engine cocked out, just died. And we had to send up flares, trying to figure out what to do, and we had white towels, we were waving white towels, and the problem with the flares was that it was the 4th of July in the middle of the day. So nobody was going to take that seriously. So we're like, oh my God, what if we're here overnight, we're drifting, and nobody finds us, but it all worked out fine, and we were rescued by another boat who then towed us in. So it was another one of our boating adventures. You might think that another couple would say, gee, I'm going to stop hanging out with her and listening to her ideas, but it never got in the way of our having the best time together and looking forward to new adventures. We spent a week in Italy also with our friends Manny and Shelley, where we went to see the Palio, stayed at a villa, and did the same thing we do when we're together. We ate, we talked, we drank some nice wine, we played cards, we shopped, and we just hung out, which is sort of our favorite thing to do. Naseer is blessed. Oh, before that, I just want to conclude that now I have revealed to you the other side of Naseer, that he is a card shark, total card shark. He's a camper, a chef, a gardener, a skier, although he didn't do much of that, a sailor, a motorboater, and a fisherman. But you probably all knew that already. Naseer is blessed to have 4 fantastic children and 13 grandchildren, a loving wife that he can't live without, and many friends, many, many friends. Everything he has done well. He's a person of high integrity, and he is so respected and loved. He dedicates himself with equal passion to work, family, and friends. He has taken on many challenging endeavors, from teaching here for many years, collaborating with friends on many projects, writing books, translating them. He was elected to the board of Amnesty International for 3 terms and to the board of Human Rights Watch. Naseer, your sense of social justice, your passion for human rights, and lifelong commitment to these causes are an inspiration to us all. You are much loved and admired, not only for your work, but for your character, your passion, and your ideals, just like Jean described what it was like to work with you every day. Thank you for your contribution to UMASS. It is so right to have your work within these walls where you have touched so many profoundly. Congratulations, and thank you for adopting me into the Aruri family.
Our next speaker is Manny Carrero. He's the Vice President for Student Affairs at Quinnipiac University in Connecticut.
As I already talked about all our adventures. Our adventures started in the late 60s as a student here. Dr. Naseer Aruri is a regional, national, and international figure in political systems and world peace. But to me, and somebody like Maria, my wife Shelley, and others, he is our professor, our teacher, and our friend. Joyce and Naseer have become part of our families. And we have shared a lifelong relationship with their family, which now includes the 13 grandchildren sitting on the side. And don't they look so cute over there, all in line, waiting very patiently? Dr. Naseer Aruri is a story of great perseverance, determination, and faith in his capacity to reach for and obtain those things which would give meaning and significance to his life, and in turn, help him to more effectively contribute to the lives of others. He is a mentor, a trusted counselor who continues to play a major role in my life and the lives of others in every corner of the country. As you heard earlier from someone else, he still gets together with his students, including myself and Maria. He is an educator, as I was said earlier by Jean. He is an educator in every sense of the word. Dr. Aruri believes that education is a lifelong task and that teaching is just as exciting as learning. He lives and teaches with an intensity of commitment because he is willing to risk the whole self, give of the mind, the body, and the spirit to the learning process for an holistic education. Dr. Aruri is a well-put-together human being in terms of his mind and his spirit. He has a great sense of possession. His intelligence borders on the brilliant. He is at home in the world of ideas. He grasps concepts quickly, synthesizes them uncommonly well, and then uses them as triggers for his creative process. He has an eclectic interest, which gives to his intellect scope and depth. This strength as a person is also reflected in the fine quality of his character and commitment to principles. He possesses a sense of responsibility and, above all, a genuine concern for his people and for their needs. This is exactly the reason why he has so many of us who have been touched and influenced by his unselfish work and dedication. In fact, he is still very much part of our lives today. As a mentee, what do I do for someone, for my mentors, which I can count in one hand, such as my father, or Dean Howard, or Dr. Aruri? Dr. Aruri is actually an image of his mentee, Dr. Manny Carrera. Now, please observe. You notice that he's got this impeccable speech pattern and wonderful accent. My creation. My creation. You know, what he does is very interesting. And he still does this today after all these years, after 30-some-odd years of teaching him this. Please observe how he uses his hands when speaking, how he cocks his head when he talks, and how he uses his arms and his hands to talk to you, or the way he listens. My inventions. That's my Dr. Aruri. Now, but, the coup d'etat of transformation came when I told Dr. Aruri to color his hair white. Voila! The image of the wise man. Naseer, I love you dearly. Thank you for an educational experience that I will never forget. Thank you, and Joyce, for your love and friendship. And thank you for the fellowship we have shared over the years. Congratulations.
Chancellor in the area, I was supposed to introduce the Chancellor in the beginning, and I forgot to, so my fault if she's not here, but what's that? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Moving along, I would like to introduce Professor Hogapine, Emeritus from Simmons College.
Everybody who knows me knows I talk too long. But I really promise you I'm going to be very, very brief today because most of you have said many of the wonderful things I'd like to say about Naseer. Most of you don't know that Naseer is actually a former student of mine. I know he looks older than I am, but he's not. I am just about 1 year older than Naseer, although I know I look very young. He was at UMASS in Amherst, and there was a connection between the various universities that you could come and take courses, and I was teaching at Smith at the time. And I was a newly minted PhD. I was so full of it. It was disgusting. But, you know, Brahim Abu-Lughod was there, and Robert Haddad, really great scholars. And they were giving a seminar. It was on the Middle East and all kinds of other things. They asked me to be one of the professors. And I think it's more because we were the only 3 Arabs in that area. And I know I have an Armenian name. It's a long story, but I am an Arab. And so I, full of myself, I said, oh, I'd love to. And there comes Naseer as one of the seminar members. And I remember thinking, well, you know, we have this smart guy in this seminar. I wonder if I can manage. And of course, I was already competing with these 2 established professors. So I decided to assert myself. And you know, the interesting thing is, right from the beginning, I understood that Naseer was probably the only man that I had met to date that was really a feminist. The others were really nice, but they were sort of patronizing. And so I liked him, and I immediately, when we were grading papers, I said, give him an A. I don't even want to read what he wrote. Give him an A. So, a lot of you have already said what I would like to have said, and I just simply say fine. But I would like to say a couple of things. There is no one who knows the Middle East and U.S. foreign policy better than Naseer Aruri. There's no one. If you read his books, the most important thing is he has a knack for clarity. And the most important thing also is he does not hesitate to criticize anybody in any state, on any side, if in fact they don't meet the criteria of working for justice, and that their analysis is one that is sound. And this is what I really appreciated in Naseer. He was not, he worked for his cause, but he was not a propagandist. He worked very hard, and he also criticized from within and publicly. And it was just very refreshing to me. I have always described Naseer, although he doesn't know this, as a quiet scholar. He's quiet in the sense that he doesn't toot his own horn. He gets about his business and he does things. Now, mind you, when we founded the old Association of Arab American University Graduates, I was one of the original members, and Naseer was one of the original members. And the two dominant figures in that organization at that time were Brahim Abu-Rulud and Edward Said. And I remember both of them as being wonderful. Now here, but Brahim would call me and he'd say, how's your mother, how's this, how's that? And then he would say, here's what we have to do, item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. And I thought, oh God, this man is going to make me crazy. And Edward would come to a board meeting at my place and he would ask about what kind of wine I was serving. That was very important. With Naseer, it's described quite well. He is a gentleman. He's a gentleman, and he always genuinely inquires about you as a person. And he was always polite. I know when I'd call him of some problem or other in the association, or just trying to understand something. And mind you, I may have been his teacher, but I have learned everything I can understand from Naseer. And I would call him, he was always polite. I mean, he could be in the middle of it. He had 4 young kids. And so I was always very grateful for his mentoring and for helping me to grow. I want, excuse me, I want to end by sort of saying that in his research papers, people who use them in this wonderful university, they'll learn not only a lot about the topics that he covered, but they'll also learn about standards of excellence in scholarship. And the big lesson they'll learn is that the purpose of scholarship is to serve the cause of justice. And in that pursuit, no one, no state and no party is exempt, as I say, from criticism, and no one does this better, working for justice in the most clear, scholarly way. On all these counts, Naseer ranks number 1. But I can never end, and I don't think anyone who's spoken thus far can end, without acknowledging that he had the greatest and has the greatest wife on earth. Joyce is fabulous. And if truth be told, she quietly would do things in the background that allowed him to do what he was always inclined to do. She was the quiet person that did the work and did all the things that made it possible for him to excel. And in turn, he did the same for his wife. And I love this couple. I have the greatest joy in knowing them. They are dear friends, and I congratulate Naseer, but I also congratulate Joyce. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a Joyce story. About 3 months ago, I called the Aruris, and I said, Joyce answered the phone, and I said, is the boss in? And she says, you're speaking with her. True story. Okay, We'd now like to hear from Professor Kazemi, a former chair of nuclear engineering at MIT. Professor Kazemi.
You know, it's very hard to follow so many interesting speakers and be able to add something informative or entertaining about Naseer. I had the pleasure of getting to know Naseer very quickly after I arrived here in 1969. A mutual friend of ours was going to attend the meeting of the association that Elaine mentioned, the Association of Arab American University graduates in Northwestern University at the time. And I went there, and that's when I first met Naseer. It turns out that the following year, he was in charge of the association. I think he took over, and he drafted me in. And I was a student at MIT, a graduate student, and he said, well, we have to put on one of the best conferences that address the issues of the Middle East, and we need all the local help that we can muster. So in fact, of course, Elaine was already indoctrinated into the association, and I had my first steps in getting to be involved in the affairs of Arab Americans and being able to contribute to some extent in that arena under their guidance. It's really a pleasure to be able to participate in the event today because Naseer has so many dimensions. Many of them already came out. And perhaps I want to stress a couple. The fact that, he's a great scholar, I think was already talked about. You don't get to be the chancellor professor without having made major contributions in your field. But Naseer was never satisfied to be a theoretician, so he was actually practicing political science and not just writing or speaking about it. He was an advisor to many in the Palestinian national movement of the 70s and became a member of the Palestine National Council. Excuse me. I went with him to visit the PLO in Tunis 1 year when all the Palestinian organization was there. And I saw how he operates. You know, everybody knew Naseer. He went to speak with all the leaders at every levels. And many of these talks happened after midnight. And, you had to find ways to fill up the gaps, so to speak. And Naseer was never at loss with people he can speak to in order to convey an idea and use the time. And we accomplished the mission. But that's the other thing I want to stress about Naseer. He's really an institution builder. Not only is he a theoretician or a commentator on political affairs, but he built many institutions. At least 3 that I know about. The AAUG, was probably, at the time it was established in '68, one of the early voices that was able to present thoughtful analysis when it came to Middle East affairs and the U.S. posture vis-a-vis the Arab-Israeli question. And Naseer was twice the president of that organization. For many years, he was responsible for its publications. And even when he wasn't in the positions of authority, he was somebody who advised those who were in the position of authority of how to conduct their affairs. I remember one in particular case when I was a president and we were about to publish the memoirs of Moshe Sharett, the early foreign affairs minister in Israel. And we received a threatening letter from a lawyer that if this proceeded, there will be a lot of lawsuits against the organization. And of course, I consulted with Naseer, and we managed to get our lawyers to act. And the book was one of the major contributors to illustrating some of the things that were perpetuated by Israel in the Arab states, within the Jewish communities in the Arab states in particular. There were two other institutions that benefited from Naseer's contributions. For the last 20 years or so, he has been a member of the board of the Jerusalem Fund for Humanitarian and Social Justice. He has also been a member in the sister organization, the Palestine Center, and I think it was due to his intellectual contributions that the organizations survived beyond the founder of these organizations, Professor Hisham Sharabi. Lastly, as many of you from the Boston area know, he established the Trans-Arab Research Institute, and Tari has been a voice for bringing a spotlight on the crux of the issues facing the Middle East, and particularly the Palestinian community. And so I really want to say thank you to Naseer for all his contributions. But we have many things in common that perhaps are not always clear. We were born in the same city, Jerusalem. We share the disposition of all Palestinians. We try to contribute in our own affairs. I think he's a bit more gentlemanly than I am, but I compete in this category. And the most important thing is, in fact, we both found very capable and loving wives from Springfield, Massachusetts. Naseer and Joyce were at our wedding, Nazik and I. We attended the weddings of some of their children. We attended the 25th anniversary, and I do hope that we will attend their 50th anniversary in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Naseer. I'm a friend of Joyce and Naseer too. I want to apologize first for the people who don't speak Arabic, because my short presentation is in Arabic. I don't know how to write in English. I have a prescription pad. I wrote a few words on it. أستاذ الأساتذة الأولى نصير، أخباره انتشرت في الدنيا عبر الأثير، لتلاميذه كان خير مرشد وأصدق سمير، فهو بأخبار السياسة وعلومها خبير، وبأمور فلسطين عليم بصير، تعلم وعلم وكتب وألف فإنتاجه كثير، صوته كان عاليا دوما لنصرة الحق له هدير، هادئ الطبع حسن الاستماع إنه أمير، لكنه أنف مستقل في رأسه ليس للمستعمر بأسير، يتصدى للمضطهد ويقف أمام الظلم والتبذير. قالوا إن الجامعة في دارتموث تكرم اليوم نصير، فهرعت أريد أن أكون هنا وبغير جناح أطير، فالعروري رائد قائد وذو علم وفير، له في قلوبنا محبة ومركز كبير، وهو بما قدمه من جهد مستحق للتقدير، وبكل مركز عال وفخر هو لا شك جدير.
Thank you very much, Jim, and thank you all, and thank all the speakers. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, with which I have been associated during the major portion of my life. My sincerest appreciation to the university for offering me a reservoir for a lifetime of work on the Middle East that will hopefully benefit contemporary and future scholars in a field that is becoming increasingly vital for U.S. interests. Scholars and students will be able to come and browse published and unpublished documents and manuscripts that may deepen their understanding and broaden their vision of this complex area. My heartfelt thanks to the Chancellor, Dr. McCormick, under whose leadership the university has thrived and prospered. Heartily appreciation to the librarian Bruce Bonds, whose interest in this project has been resolute, and to the archives librarian who is here, Judy Farrar, who has been so instrumental in planning and conceptualizing a sophisticated and state-of-the-art archives facility for our university. Special thanks go to Mary Ellen DeFrias, the Director of Alumni Relations at the university, whose voluntary and diligent work made this event possible. Nearly a year ago, she said she and I began to secure the transfer of more than 40 boxes from my library at home to the university library right here. She did most of the work, and she has been in charge of the planning for this dedication ever since the idea was conceived earlier this year. None of this would have been done without Mary Ellen. I also want to thank my former students, colleagues, and friends who joined us today to share in the dedication of my library collection, which is being integrated into the university library and especially into the archives. I would especially like to thank the MC Jim Travers, my student during the 60s, and who has methodically and consistently made sure that a dozen members of the class of 1969, a closely knit group of like-minded people, met for lunch or dinner at least twice a year since 1969. I am happy to see that most of them are here today. I am privileged to have been invited to become a member of this group, part-time member nevertheless, and congratulations to them as they celebrate their 40th anniversary and class reunion. I want to thank my dear colleagues, Drs. Jean Doyle and John Carroll, for their kind words and warm hearts. Jean and John have served this university in numerous ways, not only in the classroom since the 70s, but also in the administration arena, taking care of generations of students and contributing to academic development. I especially want to thank Jean and John for their resolute support and for their friendship throughout the years. And I might add that Jean and John have been generous contributors to the Naseer Aruri UMASS Fund, which will support these archives. Thanks also to good friends like Toby Polo of the class of 69 for his contribution to the same fund. And while I am on the subject of friendship, I cannot forget a friendly department that I worked in, the Department of Political Science at this university, which for the longest time was a model of harmony and concord. During the 70s, we fought fierce battles with the administration. We were so protective of our prerogatives as an academic department that any perceived encroachment, notice I said perceived encroachment, on our autonomy was likely to generate what seemed to look like a war of memos. Our colleague, the late Philip Melanson, was the best memo writer I had ever known. Whenever the occasion did arise, we would mobilize the tools of the battle, which consisted of an ancient speaker system connected to outmoded office phones, helping us plan strategies and edit memos on their way to the administration. I'm sure that Phil, who has archives here, would welcome these memos as part of his archives. In addition my warmest thanks go to two individuals whose contributions to this endeavor have been indispensable and quite central to the success of the project. Maria Furman and Dr. Manny Carrero, whom you heard from earlier, were both my students in the mid-70s. Maria came to the US with her parents as immigrants from the Azores when she was 12 years old. She graduated from the university with highest honor, and today Maria's success has made it possible for her to become one of the major philanthropists in our region. Her generous contributions to the Center for Portuguese Studies and Culture at the university helped keeping it viable. She is also a contributor to the Ferreira Mendes Portuguese Archives, which was dedicated right here at this spot last Friday. Her financial contributions to my own fund at the university are much appreciated. She has been a close friend and supporter to me and my family for more than 35 years. She said 30 years, and I think I added 5. The second person for whom I feel a special connection is my former student and friend, Manuel Carrero, class of 71, who is now Vice President for Student Affairs at Quinnipiac University. Like Maria, Manny also emigrated from the Azores, and he and his wife Shelley are part of our extended family and have been good friends and supporters. I want to thank 2 of my close friends whom I worked with for the past 1/3 of a century as scholar activists. Elaine Hagopian is a walking encyclopedia and the ultimate source for whatever information we might be looking for. Indeed, she is a Google and a Wikipedia. She is a Google and a Wikipedia combined. The second colleague and friend is Mujid Kazemi of MIT, who you also heard from, and like Elaine and myself, former president of AAUG. Mujid's name is synonymous with nuclear engineering, not only in the Boston area or throughout the USA, but indeed throughout the world. And yet, he is sometimes distinguished by being the husband of Naseer Kazemi. By being the husband of Naseer Kazemi, the definitive consultant for the Boston Arab American community on public matters and all issues relating to the community. I am also grateful to the UMASS Students for Justice in the Middle East, and thank you, Elaine Barber and Adi Kadura, for representing the organization here and for the magnificent plaque you have presented to me. I would also like to thank members of my family for their consistent and unwavering support throughout the decades I spent at this university and beyond. My wife, Joyce, has been a rock of support throughout our 48 years of marriage. Joyce has never shown apprehension when I traveled for extensive periods in the Middle East. In fact, just the opposite. I would return from a trip to a house completely redecorated, if not restructured, which I had no knowledge of before I left. Unknown to me, the project was quietly planned as soon as I had announced I would be traveling. She knew that I would be so jet-lagged and grateful to be home, I could hardly complain. She would then make reference to an obscure comment she made while I was very busy with a project about needing a carpenter to change something, and then add, "But of course, I told you about it over a month ago. Don't you remember?" Well, of course, the answer was predictably, "I do remember, darling." No choice. Our sons Faris, Jamal, and Jay, and our daughter Karen Layla, who teaches Spanish and French at this university, have made me proud of their efforts to comfort and support me during difficult political times. To all of them, I am thankful. And special thanks to our daughters and son-in-law, Linda, Mona, Danielle, and Paul, for their contribution to making my life and Joyce's life so happy with their love for each other and for us. Our grandchildren, all of the 13 who are sitting here on this side, have shown sincere interest in the Middle East, especially the older ones who welcomed the chance to address the subject in their social studies assignments. Indeed, to all of you here in this hall, sincere thanks and deep gratitude. The University of Massachusetts Dartmouth has been an integral part of my life since 1965, just a little bit shy of a half a century. It has impacted my life in ways I had never anticipated. In many respects, it has been my home, and it has certainly been my anchor. It is therefore the logical place and the natural basin for my documents, papers, books, and a lifetime accumulation of materials that will hopefully serve the public interest. It will be open to the public for their perusal, and it will hopefully be of use for those doing research in the field of Middle Eastern studies. To our friends who came from Boston and other parts of the state, to the students, faculty, and to the university, and to all of you who came here today to be part of this dedication, I am deeply grateful. And thank you, Ghayath, for that beautiful poem that I don't want to take more time and translate it. One of my specialties, I began actually writing and my writing career with translating poetry. And hopefully I will see this translated. Thank you very much. I'm indeed very happy to see you all here, and thanks for your support.
Well, I learned something new. I remember some years ago driving by the Aruri home, and I saw an addition that was bigger than the original house. So now I learned he must have been away for a few weeks. Well, that concludes our program this afternoon. Those of you that will be joining us for dinner, we'll be moving over to the Woodlawn Commons. For those of you who won't, we certainly appreciate, we've honored a man who truly needs to be honored. We've learned an awful lot about him, even if we thought we knew him, and it makes it so much better to know he has done so much and provided so much for all of us from day one. So thank you, and thank you for coming. Take care.
been involved with DCTV now for over 10 years in some fashion. In the late 90s and early 2000s, I was very heavily involved with the program. I helped them on a number of productions, from shooting town meetings, sporting events, and band competitions, to working on historical documentaries that actually won some awards. The staff there was so willing to teach video production with a hands-on approach, which in my opinion is the best way to learn. And that hands-on approach carried me through my education at Fitchburg State College, where I majored in video production. When I got there, I had such a head start on my peers because of what I learned through DCTV. And, I still employ some of the things I learned at DCTV in my career today. I run a very successful freelance videography company, and I also work full-time for an advertising agency in Rhode Island as their video production specialist. And I have DCTV to thank for a lot of the success I've had today. I think it's a very valuable resource to the town of Dartmouth, and I think they put some wonderful programming together, and I'd like to see them intertwined with the fabric of this community for years to come.
My name's Ian Grant. I'm a DHS grad from 2000. Welcome to the home of Gene Simmons Family Jewels. We're in Santa Monica, California, and we're going into season 4, I think starting in June. But I'm here to talk about DCTV, and basically they're the guys who gave me my start in the television industry back in, I think, sophomore year? Yeah, sophomore year of high school. Back then I kind of knew I wanted to do something creative, but didn't quite know, where I was going to go with it. And, I'd done some little films back in, middle school and stuff, but they kind of gave me the foundation for what I wanted to do. And kind of realized, I realized from there that, hey, maybe I can make a career out of this. So, yeah, I just want to let everybody know that, what a valuable asset they are to the community. And I'm not the only one who, made a career out of this. I know my friend Jake, he works on Survivor, various Mark Burnett shows. And, and I've done, I've been on Gene Simmons for the last year and a half. I've done a bunch of Home and Garden Network shows, some Discovery Channel stuff, a few HBO documentaries. So, they really kind of gave me my start. And, without them, I don't quite know what I'd be doing. So, so that's my 2 cents. They're an awesome resource for the community, and, let's keep them going for the next, 10, 20 years. So, thanks, guys.